All right, let's dive deep into Romans chapter 10 today. We're pulling apart a section here that really gets into some big ideas.
Yeah, big ideas about righteousness, what that even means, according to the author, the role faith plays.
And crucially, how this specific message gets shared, how people might hear it, and, well, why it wasn't always accepted, at least according to this text.
hmm And you see the author's heart sort of right at the beginning, a deep concern, praying for the Israelites, hoping for their salvation.
Definitely sets the stage, this concern about their relationship with God.
Yeah, it frames everything that follows.
So the chapter jumps right in, diagnosing the issue, as the author sees it anyway, talks about zeal, right? Enthusiasm even.
Right, but a zeal, the text says, is, well, not based on knowledge. That's verse 2.
Not based on knowledge. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, it claims they tried to set up their own way of being righteous.
Exactly. Instead of, as verse 3 puts it, submitting to God's righteousness, there's this tension presented right away.
Human effort versus something else.
And that something else is laid out pretty clearly in verse 4. It says, Christ is the culmination, or the end of the law, so that there may be righteousness for everyone who believes.
The end of the law. That's a strong statement.
It is. It suggests Christ fulfills it, or perhaps terminates its role as the primary path to righteousness, shifting focus to belief. It contrasts sharply with righteousness by the law, the idea of do this and live.
Which the text implies is, well, maybe impossible.
Or at least not the path being advocated for here, so the text pivots.
Okay, so if it's not law-keeping, how does this righteousness work?
Well, it's described as righteousness by faith, and it's presented as something accessible, not far off. You don't have to go searching in heaven or the deep.
Right, verses 6 and 7, it's not about these grand, difficult quests.
No, the text says the word is near you, where in your mouth and in your heart, it's immediate.
The word of faith, it calls it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gives the how-to, right? How salvation actually happens according to this passage.
Yes. Verses 9 and 10 are key here. It links confessing with your mouth, specifically Jesus is Lord, and believing in your heart.
Believing what, specifically?
Believing that God raised him from the dead. The text connects the heart belief directly to justification being made right and the mouth confession to salvation.
So inner conviction and outward declaration, working together.
Precisely. Presented as intertwined.
And then it just throws the doors wide open, doesn't it? Verse 12 is pretty stunning.
Yeah, no difference between Jew and Gentile. The same Lord is over everyone, blessing all who call on him.
And that leads right into verse 13. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Simple, direct, universal, it seems.
But that universality raises the practical questions which the text itself asks. If salvation is for everyone who calls, well,
How can they call if they haven't believed?
and unbelief if they haven't heard?
And how hear without a preacher?
And how can someone preach unless they're actually sent? It lays out this whole chain reaction needed for the message to spread.
Like a necessary sequence of events.
Mm.
And that's where we get that famous line about the messengers.
How beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. Verse 15, it really emphasizes the importance of carrying the message.
So the delivery mechanism is vital.
Absolutely. And verse 17 just hammers it home. Consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. Hearing is presented as the gateway to faith here.
Okay, so righteousness through faith, access by confession and belief, available to all, spread by hearing the message brought by messengers. Seems clear.
It does, but then the chapter introduces a complication, or maybe a paradox.
Right. After establishing faith comes from hearing, the author turns back to the Israelites, the very group he was concerned about, and asks, didn't they hear?
And the answer given in the text is a clear yes, they did. It even quotes scripture suggesting the message went out far and wide. Their voice has gone out into all the earth.
So the message was available. They did hear it, according to this.
That's the claim. Yet, verse 16 notes, not all the Israelites accepted the good news.
Despite hearing it.
Despite hearing it. And the chapter ends with quotes suggesting a lack of understanding or acceptance, even describing the people as disobedient and obstinate.
So it leaves you with this puzzle. The path is laid out, the message is supposedly heard, but acceptance isn't automatic.
It really highlights that from this author's perspective, hearing is necessary, absolutely, but it doesn't guarantee belief or acceptance. There's another element involved in the reception.
Okay, a lot to process there from Romans 10. So here's something to maybe chew on after this deep dive. What does this chapter really suggest about that interplay between the messenger getting the word out and the listener?
Well, actually taking it in, especially when, like the text claims here, the message was heard widely, but not embraced by everyone it was intended for. What's going on in that space between hearing and believing?